On tonight's show, get ready to follow a band's dream and meet an inspiring Melburnian called Geeks.
And we find out what some women really experience in the workplace and continue our look into the history of Melbourne.
And we have a few little extras you weren't expecting. And I bet you weren't expecting me again. That's correct. I'm still not Aaron. I'm James Leonta. And I am still enjoying Aaron's digs, including the silk robes, temporarily of course. So welcome back for another fabulous edition of Melbourne 22.
And I am still Kate Garrard as well. So James, have you been at least enjoying some of the perks that Aaron usually gets? Because you know that he's on his third bunch of peeled grapes.
Perks, hey?
Yeah.
So that's how you got that little headpiece, hey?
Oh no, this is a fascinator, James.
Haha, that's fascinating.
Oh gosh.
Bad? Right, yeah, thought so.
It's for Oaks Day, which is tomorrow,
Yes,
James.
Oaks
so
Day.
Are you going? Are you going? What marquee are you going to go in?
I think I'll be in the Channel 31 pavilion.
That sounds like a dream. So let's join Anna as she visits some musicians who are following their dreams.
Moving to the west side, forced to migrate there. Born into the east side with a law that doesn't care, without a friend.
Have you ever wondered what life would be like if you had followed your dreams, or perhaps you're living out your dreams right now? Well, we meet a group of guys doing just that.
Here are 23-year-old Bryn and Ben, who met whilst at boarding school in Perth. Their dream was to someday play music together.
Their control is in despair, fleeting from the outside of the walls they cover the electrifying fan.
Tell me, you've recently just come from the festival fresh. You got in,
Yeah.
and I hear you got second prize.
Yeah, we did. It's just a lot of unsigned groups around Melbourne. They come together and play a small set, and if they like you enough, they'll ask you to come back. And fortunately, we got asked to come back a couple of times and went away with a day in a recording studio. So it was really
Nice.
good. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I just tried to view it as a gig rather than a competition, and it made me feel a lot more comfortable, because if you think competitively, you're not actually expressing anything, you're just trying to be better than other people.
And that's not what
Yeah.
music is about,
Yeah,
is it?
totally. I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna relax and just have fun on stage, not try and be better than people. If we win, we do. If we don't, we don't.
What advice would you give to people wanting to follow in your footsteps?
I would just say practice a whole heap, and then go out and networking.
Yeah.
Know as many people as possible.
Because there are people out there who'll be watching going, I want to be just like him.
It's the hair.
It's the hair and the facial hair. That is an impressive moustache.
Horrible.
You could almost do that and like,
I reckon I could actually.
you could, and get some gel on the ends and twist that up. So you wear a mask. Why? When you're all such handsome boys?
Well, thank you.
Is it a gimmick?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and
You know
never
how everyone
questioned it?
has their animal?
Yeah, you're a zebra, are
Yeah,
you?
so-
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a giraffe. Now, what
Yeah.
animal are you in this band?
I'm the giraffe in the green suit.
You're the giraffe. I'm
Yeah.
a giraffe. How do you keep pursuing the dream? How do you keep your fire burning?
I just remember what it feels like,
Yeah.
and the drive inside, no matter what.
Where do you see the band going from here?
So now we've done our recording. I see us.
We've got it finalised.
We've finalised, mastered. We've got it. We've got something good, that we can put out there.
Everybody has a dream. What's your dream?
Well, Anna looked like she's having a great time there in that recording studio. Joining us on the couch now tonight, we have two individuals who are following their passion for photography. Alicia Begbie and Ivan Kemp. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us, guys. Now, Alicia, I want to start with you. How did this all start for you?
It started when my parents actually gave me a little Kodak box Brownie camera, and then it's just sort of progressed from there, starting off as a child and then getting to VCE and studying photography in VCE, and my parents giving me a nice Canon EOS 500 as a 17th birthday present. And then it's just kind of progressed from there to more recently using my iPhone and getting onto Instagram and just basically going from there.
You've actually won a couple of prizes as well. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, last year I submitted some photos to Census as part of the Yellow Pages Capture the Cover competition, and they chose a photograph that I took inside the domed reading room of the State Library to be a runner-up prize on the Inner City Northern Yellow Pages on the front cover of that. And the other, I guess, prize as such that I've only just recently been awarded, I submitted some photos to my Instagram page, and Tourism Australia actually regrammed one of my photos, and then they actually asked me and said, do you mind if we use the photo in our 2013-14 annual report? So,
that's really cool.
Yeah, and it was a photograph that I took just recently on a trip to Phillip Island, and it's inside the Seal Rock Centre down at the Nobbies. And so, yeah, that was quite a surprise to be offered that. So,
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank
excellent.
you.
Now, Ivan, let's talk about your path. Was it something similar to Alicia, or
well, we both started off with a Kodak box Brownie. In the 70s, I bought an SLR prior to going overseas and shot on slides and film. But it's really been, I guess, the last 8 or 9 years ago that I really became a passion for me, photography, and bought a DSLR, and I've since moved on to full frame. And I'm doing a part-time course, studying an advanced diploma at Photography Studies College.
Awesome.
And you've actually, you're about to release a photography-based ebook as well.
That's right.
When does that become available?
I've done all the photos, and I've done a fair bit of the text, but that's not finished, but probably about 4 weeks. I've decided what I'd do, because each semester my photography develops quite a lot, and I just take the best photographs from each semester and then put them into a book.
Lovely.
Excellent idea. Now, both of you, do you have any advice for young people who want to follow their own dream? Any solid words of advice?
Look, I'll probably start. You can spend a lot of time talking about things that you're passionate about, but I think sometimes you have to draw a line in the sand and just go ahead and do it. And I think that's probably the best advice.
Yeah.
And as I was growing up, my dad always used to say to me, can't's not a word, and you can't not do something. And so from that, I guess I've always kind of had an attitude of if you can do something. So I think the best advice that I can give someone is just to go out there and just do it.
Ivan, Alicia, thank you very much for joining us here on Melbourne 22. Two people who've turned their dream into reality are artists Roan and Phibbs, whose work appears not only on the side of Melbourne's buildings, but also at the National Gallery of Victoria and internationally. Let's have a look as we go to a break.
Now don't get me wrong, who knows what the future holds, but for now, I wanna hold on to this electric feeling.
Coming up next, as a society, how far have we come in providing equal employment opportunities for women?
If you're just joining us, tonight we're speaking to women in historically male-dominated industries.
We also look back on how a Melbourne landmark case opened the door of opportunities for all women in employment thereafter.
Back in the 70s, I would say that the attitude of society was, especially men, I guess, was essentially discriminatory.
today's climate, it's hard to believe that women had to fight for their right to be equals in the workplace.
I had been flying since I was 16 years of age. I was also instructing flying at Moorabbin Airport, and flying was really my passion. That's the way I wanted to go, so that's why I ended up pursuing that side of it.
The test case came in 1979 when Deborah Jane Laurie, then known as Deborah Wardley, took a major Australian airline to court for sex discrimination and won.
Sir Reginald Ansett had said that I would never put foot or set foot in one of his aircraft.
The Victorian Equal Opportunity Board ruled that Ansett's refusal to employ Wardley as a pilot was illegal.
The hearing occurred in front of the board. The board found that Ansett had discriminated, and they placed several orders, one of which was that I had to be employed on the next intake with Ansett. And the Ansett legal team chose to appeal those orders initially through the Supreme Court, a few hearings at that level, and they lost each of those appeals, and they finally only had one avenue left, which was the appeal to the High Court, and that's why the case ended up in the High Court in October of 1979.
And I think particularly as women have broken through the glass ceiling, younger women like myself have certainly benefited from this.
I think as a society these days, especially in the construction industry, we've come a long way. I'm one of quite a few women that are now working in the industry, and there's quite a number, I guess, coming up behind me in graduate programs, which is fantastic.
There needs to be some further work around not undervaluing women's work and ensuring that women are provided with professional development opportunities to ensure that they can progress and have equal pay.
Everything goes these days, so not to be afraid of that, just to go for it.
At the start of the 20th century, it was practically unheard of for a woman to be running a business.
In fact, it wasn't until employment anti-discrimination laws were introduced in this country to protect women that we saw a shift in attitudes.
Here visiting us tonight, we have a lady who has owned and operated her own businesses and stood for women and children's issues in the community. The Deputy Lord Mayor of the City of Melbourne, Susan Riley. Welcome, and thank you to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No problems.
Susan, do you think that society's attitudes pre-1980 towards women in these roles were discriminatory?
Oh, most definitely, and I think historically women have lived within those boundaries. But thank goodness times are changing, and we now have, a better way of getting our message across and more support. And that comes across with, for my children, for my grandchildren, and I think they have a much better life than they did in the 1980s. And even with local government, which I'm very much part of, 20% of the women that are councillors, and there are 79 councils throughout Victoria, there's only 20% of them are women. And even in the area of executives, 30%. And only 7% of women are CEOs.
Oh, wow.
So I think that says it all. We are on the move, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah. So, Susan, do you see there are barriers for advancement for women? Like, what are some of those barriers?
Well, I think some of the barriers are the support system. And for women with children to go back into the workforce, the support has to be there. And that can be by affordable childcare, it can be by paid parental leave, or it could be just hours that are flexible for a family. And I think the most important factor of all of that is that they do need a supporting partner to be able to do what they want to do, and that is the choice. And many women do want to stay home and be mothers, and I was one of them. But there comes a time where you think to yourself, I really do want to be back in the workforce. So without that support, that makes it very difficult to do.
Absolutely, I think support is one of the key factors there. Having travelled abroad, do you find that attitudes towards women in the workplace are different in other countries?
Well, I have travelled a lot overseas, but I probably have never really taken a great deal of notice. But I do know from the little bit of research that I have done, Australia is quite behind on having, the support for women and children, for women to go back into the workplace. And some of the countries that are doing it really well is the United States, United Kingdom, Sweden, and they have got it right. And I hope that we can learn from those countries.
And I saw on your website that you're a passionate supporter of women in businesses and that type of thing. What ways are you trying to support those people?
Well, you know, having been in business in publishing for quite a long time, I found with local government it was the one way that I could make a little bit of a difference. And some time ago, former Lord Mayor John So said, "What do you want to do? You know, how are you going to make that difference?" And I thought, I'd like to have women in business lunches. And then he offered me his boardroom table, which was fantastic. But when I came to think about who could I invite, and I can honestly say I only knew about 10 women. And I thought, I'm really behind in this. But those 10 women did start the first of the Women in Business lunches. And now, last year, we had 550 women.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, it's from small things, big things happen. And I'm very proud of that. But the other side of it is our International Women's Day. And that is about all of the women in Melbourne. All the countries of the world celebrate International Women's Day. And I think that is the one thing the city does well, and it's a time to pat the women on the back to say you're here and you're doing your part in a very modern society.
Well, it sounds fantastic. Susan, thank you very much for joining us here on Melbourne 22.
Thank you.
After the break, Youth Resource Officer Chris McGeechan is lifting children's spirits one cricket game at a time, and we'll commemorate Remembrance Day with a visit to the shrine.
See you after these messages. You're watching Melbourne 22.
Welcome back to Melbourne 22. With summer fast approaching, our thoughts turn to making travel plans and getting away. This week's On The Spot question is, why do you like to travel?
Well, we mainly travel for business, but I like to travel overseas for holidays.
I like to experience different cultures, and from those differences we can work out what our common humanity is.
I travel for work. I work around Australia doing industrial coatings.
It's a great adventure. You see new places, new people, new cultures.
Landing, going over the country, seeing all the landscape.
Just so that we have a beautiful destination to go to. Lots of those overseas.
Yeah. I love to travel because my family's interstate, so I love to go and see my daughter and her fiancé.
I don't like to travel, I have to for work.
So I'm going over now to organise her wedding. And we like coming to Melbourne as well because we go shopping here.
Come on, Connor, get up there. Big jump. Come on. Let's go. Left hand done.
I've been in the police force for 20 years, and for the last 8 I've been working as a youth resource officer. Pretty much it's engaging police officers with young people within the community around a positive activity or event. We run 4 blue light programs. Pretty much they all based around sport.
My favourite sport is football with kids.
I love my job. Seeing smiles on their faces. The whole time I've been in the police force, this is exactly where I need to be. I joined the police force to help people, and I can really do that now.
He is very kind.
They don't have enough positive role models in their lives, and that's exactly what I try and be.
Wow, who knew that Victorian Police do that? He's an inspiration, don't you think?
Absolutely. He and 2 other officers run the program come rain, hail or shine each week. If you want to support this community project, you can do so by contacting Youth Resource Officer for Yarra, Chris McGeechan at the Fitzroy Police Station.
Now, James, every year on Remembrance Day, we play the tune The Last Post. But do you actually know the story behind it?
Mm-mm.
Well, we have that story and more on our new website, so please check that out. And if you're wanting to send us some feedback during the week, then just jump online to the sites appearing on your screen now.
Join us again next week to find out why Melbourne loves laneway learning.
And we're going to leave you now with a visit to the Shrine of Remembrance.
Followed by Acid Western performing their song, Time Aside. Good night.
And thanks for watching.
It was built during the Great Depression, so between 1927 and 1934 when it opened. And at the time, we didn't bring our dead back from war to bury them here, so they were all buried somewhere overseas. And families had no way, on the whole. It was very rare for a family to be able to afford to go to visit a grave. And that assumed that they even knew where the grave was, because many graves were not identified and many men were lost but had no known grave. Well, the First World War, the Second World War, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and wars subsequently, since the end of the Vietnam War in 1975, any conflicts in which Australians have served, and peacekeeping operations, so right up to the present. We'll see an extension to the south as big as the space that we're now in, so a large couple of thousand square metres space and 2 more courtyards. So we have 2 to the north, there'll be 2 more courtyards to the south. One of those courtyards will become a dedicated entrance for schools.
Running to take cover from the storm. Your eyes are so shine, holding back the dawn. Was it me? Well, you said no. Your eyes that smile deceive the ones you've scorned. The day is done, so we better to begin. All the swords since succumb to getting high. Was it me? Well, you'll never know. It's your eyes that smile deceive the ones you've scorned. You've been on my mind. Change your height, switch time. You've been on my mind. Change your height, switch time. 'Cause the day is done, so we'd better off again. All the swords since it come to getting high. On the nightly chat, it's all been said and done. Your eyes that smile deceive the ones you've scorned. You've been on my mind. Change your height, switch time. You've been on my mind. Change your height, switch time. This is better. You're mine. It's a time that you find. This is better.